have to take Dramamine before you watch our show.
All right. Well, just be relaxed, Emma.
Okay.
And then, just look at Carl and speak what you know.
There you go.
I'm gonna leave.
That's the main thing.
Do you need any water in there? Okay. And so, just like we're having a conversation. So, and you can always repeat yourself if you feel that you didn't say it right the first time, because that's the magic of editing, you can cut stuff out.
Okay.
So, what is your name?
Emma Harris.
What do you do for a living?
I'm an organizer. And power.
Yeah, and you can say it over again.
Okay.
So you're an organizer for Power?
Yeah.
And Power is an acronym for?
So should I talk about it, Power?
Okay. Let's start again. What do you do for a living?
I'm an organizer at Power.
What is Power?
Power is organization for the G and the CalWorks.
Yeah. What is your role and how long have you been doing it?
I'm an organizer and I've been doing it since 1997.
How did you get involved in Power?
They came out to my website and talked to us out there.
And what work were you doing there?
I was out there cleaning buses.
Describe the kind of work that you did.
I cleaned the buses, the inside, like wash the windows and the seats in the front of the bus.
And how were you treated on the job?
Treated on the job, we treated unfair because we didn't have protection. First, they treated us like we was nobody, so we were treated bad.
Describe some of those working conditions.
Working conditions, like we used graffiti remover, and they didn't give us protection for our hands, gloves and stuff. We needed gloves, masks. They didn't give it to us at first. So a lot of people was getting sick. So we had to have an organization like Power that fight for us to get it, because we didn't have it at first.
And how did you go about fighting to get those things?
We came to Power, and we talked to them, told them about it, and they came out to our site and talked to the people about it, and asked them what was wrong out there. And they came back and we had organized, we got together, united, and we went out to the site and talked to the big boss about what was going on.
And how were you treated on the job?
When we at first we was treated bad. We was really treated bad because they didn't like us. They said we gave them germs, so we had to use, instead of using the regular bathrooms, we had to use the potty pots.
You had to use the portable toilets.
Yeah.
And who was this that was making these kind of directives?
It was the people who drive the buses, the city workers. They didn't want us using the same bathroom as them, so they told them to go get us them outside pots, so we used them. But they were so filthy, a lot of people didn't use them. They went to the restaurants to use bathrooms.
And how much were you paid?
Less than minimum wage, maybe about not even $5 an hour was less.
And were you paid on a monthly basis?
Yeah, I was paid the first and the 15th.
You were paid every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And what was how much were you paid every 2 weeks?
300 and, not sure how much it is now.
Was that the monthly amount or every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks was 100 and I got 172.
Maybe you could repeat that. Just say
100.
Every 2 weeks I got 100.
Every 2 weeks I got 172. $172.
And
2 weeks, we got $172.
And for how many hours work was that?
11 hours every 2 days. Yeah, for 2 days.
11 hours a week?
Yeah, I guess, because it said 2 days, because we worked 2 days, and it was 11 hours.
It's 100, I've got 100, how much?
172.
100
That was at first, but I don't know how much it's now.
at that time.
Yeah,
What year was that?
the year of my, 19, it was in the 90s, maybe 90. Sure when it went up. I think it went up, 2 years ago, so I think it went up.
So let's see here, let's figure out, it was,
It was
You're receiving $172 every 2 weeks or per week?
2 weeks. 'Cause
Every
we did
2
Because we
weeks.
did the first and the 15th. So
Okay.
it's every 2 weeks.
and it was 11 hours.
Yeah.
Per
that was
week?
Probably a week.
Yeah, because you only work 2 days, yeah, that's like.
2 5.5-hour days?
Yeah, like with 7.5 hours, something like that. Because we work from 7 o'clock to 2, supposed to be until 2.
Work from 7 to 2 for 2
Yeah.
days a week. Maybe you could repeat that. Work from 7 to 2, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., 2 days each week. And maybe you could say which days.
Okay, I work, Tuesday and Wednesday from 7 till 2 every, for 2 days.
And for that, and every 2 weeks, I was paid $172.
Yeah,
Maybe you could repeat that.
okay, every, paid 172,
So it started out every 2 weeks.
okay, every 2 weeks was paid $172.
And, and did you work alongside city workers?
Yeah. A lot of times, well, most of the time, we did all the work and they just, like told us what to do or watched us, but most of the time, we did all the work. It was us doing the work.
And what was the job titles of the other city workers?
They was like the supervisors.
Were there also city workers who were car cleaners?
Yeah, they did the buses. They like fixed the buses, something was wrong with them.
And how was their job different from your job?
From our job, well, what they did is, they were supposed to be doing like we do, but they was mostly walking around or just standing or watching. And we was doing the work.
And how did your working conditions compare to their working conditions?
How to compare, I thought we did like the same, but we just didn't get the money, but we did the same thing we did.
And what was the explanation from the city why you didn't get the same money?
Because they say we didn't do all the work they did, like they drove the bus, we couldn't drive the bus. Because some people knew how to drive the bus, but they wouldn't let them drive the bus.
So your job was almost like their job, but just a little bit
Yeah,
different.
that's what they say, we didn't get the money, the job.
And also, did they recognize you for doing work for the city?
No, the, gym place where they didn't consider our work as counted as work,
What did they consider it as?
as volunteer.
And describe what GA is.
It's general system, you have to work for your money. And you get a little pay. And you do the money working by side by people who make more than you do.
And why did they consider it volunteer service?
because they say it wasn't supposed to be a permanent job, that was just supposed to be temporary. When you go to GA, they say it's not supposed to lead to a permanent job.
And how many years did you do it?
I did it off and on since 1989. So,
And what would you need to have moved off from GA?
a better, well, more money and benefits with it. So to be able to get a better place to live and have all the things we need to live in San Francisco.
And how many people that you know of who are on GA would move off of GA if they had a living wage job available?
I think it's about maybe maybe about
What percentage?
more. Yeah, maybe
What-
half.
Well, it's Tom, maybe, so she
Sorry.
looks at,
Okay, okay.
So-
Maybe half.
oh, you could say, I think that half would move off.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Okay. I think half will move off. They had a chance to for better pay.
And what should the city be doing to make living wage jobs available?
Give the training, they say we don't have the training, give us the training we need, and, so we get more money and better, housing, because a lot of people need more housing, and so they be able to, live better, do all the things they need to do to live.
Okay, it's going great. How's the sound? Is it-
Well, I mean, it should be fine. It's, just the mic that's in there, but it should be, and we should be able to control
Did you
that.
bring the,
No, I don't have an external mic for it. It's a small jack. The mic I had won't fit in this generator. So, but we should be able to compensate for that, any lack
do
of
you,
sound.
do you think maybe if you were closer?
Do you want me to do that? Okay.
Yeah, let's try it. Something that just, yeah. I think, yeah, we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, no, you don't need,
Oh.
he's moving closer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll move
Yeah.
closer.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay.
And also on your shoes, when you move your feet, there's
Oh,
the
okay.
leather squeaks.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
that's, yeah, so, and, can you think of any other things that you want to talk about?
I talked about power. Yeah, I told him power. I didn't, oh yeah, I should have told him about power, what it stands for. I didn't put that on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What does POWER stand for?
It stands for People's Organized Employment Rights.
We'll try it again. What does POWER stand for?
People's Organized Employment Rights.
And who's involved in POWER?
Power is low and no wage workers.
What are no-wage workers?
No wage workers, people who don't get any money at all. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting about that. I'm never moving my feet. Yeah, people who, people don't get money, or people get less money, or people who just, below the, average wage.
Does that describe people who are in the GA program?
Yes, CalWorks and like, people who clean people's houses, work in restaurants.
And what benefit is the city getting from the GA program?
Benefits, well, they save a lot of money. They save more money than if they want to give out to the people. Say, was 30,000 now, she might probably more now. They save every year.
How much are city workers who are car cleaners making?
We make from $16 to $27 an hour.
And what kind of benefits are they getting?
They're getting base vacation. education, they're getting health care, protection. We didn't get none of that. We didn't.
Did you apply for a city job?
Yes, at General Hospital. When I was working in the laundry department, they said that we'd be able to get a job. We put it in the application. And I put one in, and then I never heard from them.
Did you talk to anyone about the job?
Yes, talked to the personnel office.
And what did they tell you there?
They say they didn't even tell us what really happened. They just said that we would be in contact later. They didn't really tell us anything.
And you were applying for a job doing the same thing that you were already doing.
Yes,
And was there a job opening posted?
yes, they had jobs opening, but they instead of giving them to us, they gave them to people who didn't work, didn't even know how to job. They was out city workers instead of people who already know how to do it.
And why do you think that the jobs didn't go to people on GA?
Well, they said that we didn't have enough experience for it, and it didn't count what we was doing.
Why did they say you didn't have enough experience?
They said because we didn't have everything that you're supposed to do, we didn't do it.
Could you give some examples?
Like driving, like when you do the buses, clean the buses, we didn't drive the buses. And then like cleaning General Hospital, you didn't drive around. I don't know what you call that little wax thing that you do drive around in the hospital.
A floor polisher?
They didn't do that. And then like cleaning the streets, they didn't drive the truck around. So it's always a little something that say that we didn't do that we couldn't get the job.
And why did they say that your work didn't count?
Because they didn't count our work. It don't matter how long you worked. It didn't have it on paper how long you worked at all. They say it was volunteer, so they didn't even check it.
They said it was volunteer service because you were...
On GA, and it wasn't supposed to lead to a permanent job. It's supposed to be just like, go there and just do it for a while and then you're off.
But this sounds like they expected then that you wouldn't even be able to get a job doing the same work that you were doing.
Yeah, that's the way it seemed like to us. Because we go to this place and put out papers they had to fill out, put in, and they never could call us, never contact us.
And what, describe the work that you did at General Hospital.
General Hospital, I worked in the laundry department. What we did is that we do the sheets, we fold the sheets up and the towels, and they have a pressing thing. It goes through it and it comes out, and you gotta fold the clothes. So that was what we did, and then we count them and put them in stacks. And then that'd be hot. It'd be real hot there. You gotta be real early. It was hard work, but people would do it.
What were your work hours there?
Work from 7 till 2.
And 2 days a week?
Yes, 2 days a week.
And $472 so every 2 weeks?
Yeah. $72 every 2 weeks.
How were you able to survive on such little money?
It was hard, I say. I saved a little here and there and they gave us food stamps, but it still wasn't that much food stamps. I got about 105 food stamps.
And how did you pay rent?
Rent, well, I had to do 10 million housing, but it was the first and the 15th, I paid it half. They let us pay half and half. Mine was 135, 270 a month. So 135 each.
And did I already ask you how many years you were there at General?
In general, no, I was there, about 2 years at General Hospital. Then my mom died, so then when somebody died, they take you off and then you gotta start over again.
Why did they take you off?
Because when you don't go to work that job next day, they put you somewhere else.
Could you tell that story and describe what happened?
What happened and like I was working there and then my mom was real sick and she's in a home. We had a home for her and she died. And then when I told them that I wouldn't be back the next day because I took off because my mom was sick, I was kind of really upset about my mom dying. And then the next day they put me in another place. They said I'd come back to the same place, but they didn't. I didn't be able to come back. So then I went to a bus place. That's when I started working at another place.
Yeah, that's when you started working cleaning the buses.
Yeah.
Works.
Cleaning buses.
Can you, do you have anything else that you'd like to describe? Maybe you could,
They went about that.
what kind of health care coverage did you have?
We didn't have health care. People tried to get Medi-Cal and they said we couldn't get Medi-Cal. So we didn't have no health care.
Why couldn't you get medical?
They wouldn't give it to the people in GA. They say it wasn't eligible for. So they would give it to us. And if you get sick and you don't call in or you don't come in, you lose your job. And then you have to go back and apply again.
Describe what the chemicals that you used for cleaning the bus did to people.
The hands, people got it on their hands, and it was so strong. And even if you wear a mask, it was too strong. People got it on their hands, and it messed your skin up. And you get in close, sometimes it's hard to get out. It's still that strong. And first they would give us gloves, and they would give us masks, and people got it on their clothes, and somebody got on their skin, and it really messed their skin up.
Did people get sick from?
Yeah, I got sick too. A lot of people got sick. The smell, it was so strong.
What happened when you got sick from using the chemicals on the job?
At first they didn't. They were supposed to send me to general hospital, but a lot of times I don't think they send people to general hospital. They're supposed to take them there if they get sick. But they just told them to go home.
And what happens when you miss that time from work?
When you miss it, they make you, if you go home and you don't come back, and if you don't sign, then you have to start over again. If you miss a day, you don't sign. You have to go back to your work and start over again. You need 30 days to be applied to somewhere else again.
What does that mean to start over?
To start over is that you got to fill out papers over again, all the papers that you filled out before, and then get a new worker, because they give you another worker. Or you might have the same one, but most times get a new worker. And then they'll give you where you sign up where you're going to be, and then you'll get your money and start going again.
So you have to go through the whole reapplication
Everything
process.
over again. Yeah, every time. If you miss a day and you don't sign in and you get cut off, that's 30 days. Now they make it, depending how many times you get cut off, it gets longer and longer, like 60 days, 90 days.
So if you miss any work, they penalize you from cutting you off from a check for 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
That's just, ask a couple more questions.
Just something I wanted to, when I mentioned driving the buses, do you just mean moving the buses from one place to another,
Yeah,
not actually
yeah.
driving the buses?
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I meant.
maybe to clarify
Oh,
that.
sorry.
No, that's all right, it just that maybe we could slide that
Yeah,
in there.
drive it like when they wash them, you gotta drive it to another side, so like that, they tell you back and forth. So it's more like back and forth, instead of driving like the other people drive outside. Yeah.
So maybe you could describe that again. The, what were, what was the difference between the work that you were doing and if you could describe the work that you were doing and then the work that the person in the city job, the car cleaner, would do?
What we do every day when we come, we would get all that stuff together, and we go out. They assign us where we have to work at, and some people will work outside cleaning the bus, and they have to wash it with have to wash things you wash it with, soap and water, and then people will wash inside the bus. And then they have people who do graffiti, just do graffiti all day long. They go find buses to wash the graffiti off of all day long. And what the city workers would do was they follow you around and where you are and go find you and see if you're doing your work. But most of the time they're just walking around and we're doing the work and they're getting a big pay. Like they walk around like we do all the work.
And what was the main, what were you told was the difference between your job description and their job description?
Ours was because we didn't do everything they did, like drive the bus from one side to the next side. When they be washed, they washed out, wash the inside out. You gotta drive it to another side of the bus barn, and we didn't do that. So they consider that we didn't do everything that was supposed to be done on the job application.
And what were the requirements on the job application?
Well, when we filled it out, they didn't say nothing about you had to drive the bus. Just fill out what you do, what had to be done, describe what kind of work. So we figured that's all you had to do to get the job, because we did all the work, we know how to do everything, and we figured that was enough. And they didn't tell us that we had to drive the bus.
How did you find that out?
Through power.
What are the minimum qualifications for the entry-level city job? What I'm getting at is that when you apply for a city job, do they tell you you have to have 1 year experience doing that kind of work?
I'm not too sure about that. If it says 1 year.
Does it, is one of the requirements experience and?
Yeah, that experience, yeah.
Okay, so maybe if you could talk about that, say, start out with describing what they post as the requirements for that job.
They post the requirements.
As you understand it, I mean, you basically were, told you didn't meet all of the requirements, right? But when you applied for the job, what were you told or led to believe were the requirements?
Well, people filled out, because I didn't fill one out for the bus place, but they said that you had to have a certain amount of experience. Just write down what you do on it. I think that's all you did. You had to write down what you did. I think that's what people, they said they filled out, what they did on the job. And then I guess they figured that's all they had to do, right? And how long they did GA, they've been doing it. And some people been doing it from 5 or 9 years, and they still didn't get the job.
And how many years did you do it?
Let's see, I did it, I'd say 5 years.
And when you applied for the job at General, what were the requirements for that job?
Well, General, they just said if you had experience, you've been on a job a long time, and how long you've been on, ask you how long you've been on it, and then you write down how long you've been doing that, and then they say they would let us know if we got the job or not. And a lot of people, the supervisor said that should be able to get the job, because we've been on here doing it a long time, and we didn't get it. And they kept promising us, you'll get a job here, because you've been doing this a long time, you know how to do it, but we never did.
And how did you find out the reason why that you didn't get the job?
I went up there, me and some ladies went up there and find out why it took so long before we knew knew anything about it, but they wasn't gonna even tell us anything till we went up there.
And what did they tell you?
They told us that they had gave job to somebody outside, instead of, a city worker, another city worker, and they had to teach them how to do it, and we already knew how to do it.
And what was the explanation of why it went to,
We didn't have, us, when they say experience,
and what was the experience that you didn't have?
well, at the time that it said that we didn't have no experience because we were GA workers, that's what we thought. Because they kept telling us that we didn't have experience, we say, and we know why, because we GA workers. And they would never tell us that was why we didn't get the job.
How did you find out it was because it didn't include, using the floor polisher?
Power, through power, we had meetings with power, and they found out, they went to and found out about it, had meeting with the big people, find out what would need to be done to, us to get the job.
So when they met with the bosses there,
Yeah.
they said, well, the job that you were doing wasn't exactly like what was required for the
Yeah.
city job.
Yes.
Almost, but not quite.
Yeah, they were saying.
So it's, your job description was maybe 90% of
Yeah.
what was.
Missing 30%, I think they said, or 10%, something like that.
Um, and how many years did you work there at General?
The general, 2 years, 2 years in general.
You spent 7 years doing the city's work.
Yeah. Little pay, no benefits. It's terrible. And treated bad. Really, really bad.
What should the city do to change this situation?
What they should is like give us more money and training, because a lot of people, but they say they don't know how to do it. They should give them training. People need training and more money, because definitely you can't live on much to get down. Need more money. Like we would need, what, say, we go like people who make 16, 20 something dollars, we should give about 15 or even that much as they get. We say we doing the work and they're just walking around, just watching us do it. And they say they're getting the big bucks, but walking around doing nothing all day long. So we figured we should get that and be able to live in the city, because it's so hard. And no food, we need food, clothes. So we figured we need more money and training.
Did you also witness GA workers doing the work that used to be done by city workers? Did you witness fewer car cleaners or fewer
Yeah,
city workers that were doing laundry at the hospital?
yeah, it was fewer and fewer. Getting smaller.
Could you talk about that?
Because they had all the GA workers was doing it, so the city workers didn't have to do it anymore. It was less of them and more GA workers, but the GA workers were getting less money, so the city was saving more money. And then to hire less city workers and hire more GA workers. They were saving money. Yeah.
Maybe you can recall, over the time that you were there at the Muni, you can estimate how many city jobs were not replaced.
Not too sure how many of us was replaced.
At the hospital, were there city workers who were doing laundry?
They was less now, less, yeah, I'm not sure now. Larry would know more about General Hospital. I don't, at the time, yeah, I think it wasn't less people, it was more people. When I was working then.
All right, well, I think we're wrapping it up unless you want to
My name's Larry Lattimore.
And what is Power?
Well, I'm a member of Power. Power is a unique organization. It stands for people working. No, it's not.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
also, you know, the magic of editing is that we can cut and paste anything. So,
Yeah,
just
okay, right.
repeat what you were gonna say.
Yeah, Power stands for
People organized to win.
people organized to win employment rights.
Do you wanna repeat it?
Yeah, Power stands for people organized to win employment rights.
What is your role in Power?
My role as a member is to actually reach out and talk to people, other workfare workers, try and to give them a sense of if we join together, we can actually change the way the system is running us.
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been with Power 3 years and a half, about 3.5 years.
What do you do for a living?
Well, the tasks that were assigned me were the porter job over at San Francisco General, but my skills would lead to heating, cooling, and air conditioning, that type of thing.
And actually, I'm not looking for your trade, but if you can work in what it is what that you're on GA.
Right.
And
Okay.
so then the next question would be, what is GA?
Okay. GA.
What do you do for a living?
Okay. I'm a porter. I worked as a porter at the San Francisco General Hospital.
How did you get that job?
Well, finding myself unemployed in San Francisco, I qualified for GA. So I went down to the office and I applied.
What is GA?
Well, GA is stands for General Assistance.
How were you treated at the GA office?
I found it to be one of the most demoralizing, dehumanizing atmospheres I've ever come in contact with.
Describe some of the treatment that you had there.
Well, from the onset, I was treated as if I was a second-class citizen. I many times felt intimidated by the workers, right down to the point where you have your fingerprints taken. That's very unique in any type of agency that's trying to give you a support.
Describe the kind of work that you did.
As a porter, I basically cleaned up, swept. I hauled large garbage cans to the trash compactor. Even though I wasn't assigned some very tedious tasks, I still had to clean some toilets, stop some overflows, clean up general plumbing messes. Sometimes I was exposed to very hazardous conditions with very few safety implements in place.
How were you treated on the job?
These supervisors at the hospital would use the fact that if they sent me back to the GA office, it was very inhospitable. So most people, and myself included, wouldn't want to be forced to go back to try and get some type of remedy for the bad working conditions. So you'd have a choice basically either to do the menial, tedious type, dangerous work, or go back and talk to an inhospitable, hostile type worker. And many of my coworkers just chose to do the menial, unsafe tasks.
And how much were you paid?
Our pay is always geared to minimum wage. It's not like it's paid. We work for a grant, and the grant has a set amount. So they just adjust the number of hours you work to equal whatever grant you get.
How much was the grant?
The grant has never been more than $375, something to that.
How much was the grant when you worked there at General?
Actually, I think it was more like $360 when I started. We worked 11 hours a week, but that was like 44 hours a month. And the pay came out to just above $550, I think. But I was working side by side and doing sometimes more work than the people who are working for the city and making at least $17 to $18 an hour. So under those circumstances, even for those 11 hours, the city's still owed me more than $100 a week for just the labor that I did.
And how many city workers were you working alongside?
Well, at the beginning, there was maybe 18, probably somewhere between 18 and 15 city workers per shift. The more GA workers that were brought in meant that there were less and less city workers on the job. So we gradually did 80 to 85% of the work and got less than 10% of the money that was budgeted to do.
How did the working conditions of the city workers compare to your working conditions?
The city workers had very bizarre assignments. Sometimes they would come to work. We use the same office spaces, and sometimes you would not see that city worker until lunchtime. And then after lunch, you might not see them again until it's time to check out. But from what I understand, they spent that time dusting or maybe sweeping out the wards or something. They got kind of hard to find, especially in cases of emergencies where toilets were running or there was no linen. You had to go somewhere to get some towels or bedding or something. So under those conditions, I can't really state what the job qualifications or job assignments for the city workers were. They could have been doing something, but it wasn't in plain sight, so therefore I can't tell you.
Did you apply for a city job?
Every 6 months or every 8 to 12 months, there were several openings for porters in all of the hospitals that the city controls, especially at General. Now, I had a chance to meet 2 or 3 people who, one of which worked for the GA office on and off for like 13 years. And he always was assigned at the hospital. He tells me that he's been applying for jobs for at least 10 of those years. We get all kind of updates on what jobs are coming up, because sometimes the supervisors will use that for motivation to get people to do even more work than they were scheduled to do. They said, well, if you work hard, I'll put in a good word for you. And if I could do anything to make it happen, you'll get a permanent job here. So naturally, you create a competitive type, let's get this job done. But every time there's a job, every time that someone fills a job, it's someone from that's not from the GA workforce. And that's demoralizing, because you know the job, you do it every day, and then what happens is when they bring in a new recruit, you basically have to teach him or her how to do the job, and they're getting paid $15 an hour to start. Very frustrating type.
Do you feel that you did a good job?
Well, I'm always motivated to do the very best I can. Some of my training's in the healthcare field, so I do whatever I can to make people who are sick and injured feel better, or either get better faster. So I always try to keep the hospital sanitary, just to keep down whatever infection. So yeah, I know that I have a very skilled level when it comes down to the porter job.
What response did you get to your application for a city job as a porter?
Well, there's basically 2 responses. First of all, when you go to apply, you have the feeling that your application didn't even make it to the pile, to the person that was gonna make the decision. Just the mere fact that you worked for GA seemed to be a liability rather than an asset. Some type of stigmatization that says because you're a GA worker that you're not even considered. But on the job front side, the supervisors say, well, I'm sorry, I don't do the hiring. There must be something wrong with your application, or I'm sure you would have got the job. But if you just try, keep up the good work, we'll see what happens the next cycle.
Good. What would you need to move off of GA?
Well, you have to examine the standards for this area, basically. I work side by side with some city workers. They were making 17, 18. Some city workers, after a period of time, was making $25 an hour. But it seemed that they had enough to actually live and actually flourish in this area. So I think, just to draw a comparison, something similar to what they're making I think would be the goal for a porter at the hospital.
What should the city do?
Well, under consideration that the city has worked probably 9,000, maybe 10,000 workers over the 14, 15-year period of workfare. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that the city's been saving money in the millions each year. Somewhere between 14 and probably $20 million worth of just salaries. And that's not talking about benefits, vacation pay, or the fringe benefits that come from actually having a full-time job. So you add that up, somewhere between 15 million and 20 million for 10, 15 years, there's enough money right there that the city could actually reach out to the workfare worker and reward him for all the work's been done. And because he's already skilled, he could actually fall in place with the rest of the union workers and have something to be proud of. Now, the organization Powers came up with a plan called wages. That's working and gaining employment security. It was a plan that workfare workers came up with to begin with. Because we know exactly what the problem is, it was very easy for us to come to a solution. First of all, it asks that we get credit for the work that we do, that somebody's actually responsible for collecting our job experience while we're working for General. And that would apply not only for city jobs here in San Francisco, but it's just work history. I mean, you can say, well, I've worked for the last 3 years as a part-time job, but I had these skills. Today, if I was to go and say that, let's say I go to Sarasota, I mean not Sarasota, but go to San Jose and say, I have these skills, I've been working this long, I'm qualified to do your porter job if it's anything similar to the general, San Francisco general job. All you have to do is just check my references and talk to these people. You can't do that. These records of your work does not exist. The skill level that you achieved is not recorded. So you can't walk into anyone's personnel department and give them a detailed explanation of what you've been doing for the last 2 years.
Why can't you do that?
Because of the way that the GA program is set up. It's in order for you to be able to use the work you do as a reference, somebody within the department has got to be responsible for maintaining all the evaluations that are taken at the different job sites. Somebody's got to be able to answer the phone and say, oh yes, Mr. Lattimore did work here. And from my records, he did a very good job for us. And yes, I could recommend him for your job. That's not in place. So the proposition wages would guarantee that there would be someone responsible for actually keeping track of your work and your skill level. And wages would guarantee that at a certain point in your skill level or training, that you would meet all the qualifications for a city service job, regardless of where it was at. And then the other part of wages would support a certain percentage of whatever jobs that come up in the city, that you'd be able to at least start a training program, even if you want to change fields. Okay, like I worked at the hospital. Let's say some job comes open at the bus shops. Because I've given the city this much service, there should be a way that my dependability reflects in another department, because I've been there. I came to work every day. I did my job, and I didn't cause any problems. Those people are valuable, and because of that, it makes a very good training subject. It's very simple.
How many years did you work as a porter at General?
Well, out of the 3 years that I've been on GA, I actually worked as a porter for about a year and a half. I'm still trying to trace some elements that could possibly have developed at San Francisco General, but I've been unable to actually do any work for about 8-9 months now, and I've been forced to apply for SSI.
But before you became disabled on the job, how many years did you work at General?
I worked at General for a year and a half continuously.
And then were you disabled on the job? Was it a
Well,
situation?
That's never been able to be actually proven. The only work I was doing at the time was GA work, and the elements that caused me to be unable to work actually happened at General. So while I was at the hospital, I became very sick, and so I just went to emergency room. And from that day forward, I haven't been back to work at General.
What happens when you get sick on the job in a GA work?
There's no process. The probabilities are that you will get cut off. If you don't show up for your regular assignment, you have like 3 days to get in touch with your worker, and then begin a process of investigation to why you didn't come to work. That's their basic. That's their basic outlook. They just want to know why the work wasn't done.
Are you able to call in and tell someone that you're sick and not going to be able to come in?
You can't be able to call in and expect to be granted some time off. You can only call in to keep them from making the punishment more harsh. When you call in, you know that there will be some actions taken.
What is the action taken?
Well, basically, you'll have to bring in doctor's reports or some type of written incident report. You have to justify not being able to go to work. The system used to be more cruel. Through the work of Power and other groups like Power, the system is more compatible now. But it's still very rigorous to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, especially when you're poor to begin with.
What was it that Power changed, and how did Power go about changing it?
Well, in most cases, Power organizes around the obvious. Power organized around the fact that GA workers were having to go to sites all over San Francisco and be there at some very inopportune hours. So if you were 10 minutes late, then you were in trouble. So they organized to get fast passes so that a worker could actually get on a bus and ride to his job site, basically eliminating a poor person having to walk across town. Those are some of the things. Power also was very instrumental in getting some of the working conditions changed over at different bus yards. They had some very inhumane working conditions at Woods, for example. For some reason, the union city workers were not allowing the GA workers to even use the same bathroom. In some cases, they would bring out porta potties to the job site just so the GA workers used the porta potties, and which left the regular restrooms for the city employees. Totally bogus move. And then the porta potties were cleaned like once a week, maybe twice a week. It's very well. Everybody's been to a porta potty. It's not a very sanitary place to do any kind of business. So those type of injustices were righted by Power organizing it and actually bringing that not only to the public's attention, but to the attention of several department heads and the people who are directly responsible for the well-being of workfare.
How did Power go about making those changes?
Well, first of all, the people who are affected at, let's say, the Woods site, before Power would arrive, they basically wouldn't have a voice to make changes. But because Power would tell them that the only way that they could actually bring about a change is to come together to actually make that effort to bring a public outcry. It's the basic steps of organization.
Maybe you could go through some of the steps.
Well, first of all, there has to be a problem. And then it has to be a problem that affects many people. So, problems we have a great deal of. Then you have to decide who's got the power to change to eliminate the problem. And once you isolate on individuals who can make those changes, then you have to actually confront those people to make them aware that not only is the situation bad, but if they're not a part of the solution, trying to make the situation better, then they are definitely part of the problem. So we take it to the person that is most responsible for having the problem, making the problem happen. And then we have a choice for how that person reacts, to take it to the next level, to take it to their supervisor, their superior, and express how they failed to remove whatever obstacle there is. But at all times, keeping the people who are affected involved and informed. So many people have felt the iron fist of suppression or felt oppression. So it's not very hard to reach out to people who might not be affected by this problem, but has been affected by other problems that needs an outlet. And it's not very long before you have a large group that is actually mobile and capable of just marching on City Hall or actually showing up at job sites willing to make statements to the press or just inform the public that there's some very, very bad situations happening right here in our neighborhood. So, like I said, it's very simple.
And some of these questions I'll just be repeating.
Okay.
Kind of when we're editing, we'll cut
All right.
paste where it's on. But how much were you paid?
If you calculate salary on minimum wage, then I have to say I was paid minimum wage. But because there's so many other things that go into a wage, that I have to say I was paid less than minimum wage. Without an opportunity for vacation, without an opportunity for good child care or health care, without the ability to take time off in case of emergencies, without those rights, I only receive money. And for every right that's taken away, it's equivalent to so much money being taken away.
What amount of money did you receive every 2 weeks?
The most amount of money that I received for a 2-week period was $87.
How were you able to survive?
Well, it means that in order to survive, you can't have a decent place. I mean, you can't get any place for $180 every 2 weeks. In my own case, I chose to either stay in a shelter, or when the shelters got so hazardous, I decided it was better to sleep on the streets.
how many people that you know would move off of GA if there was a living wage job available?
Well, let me put it this way. I don't know anyone who would remain on GA should they be able to qualify for a living wage job.
How could the Community Jobs Initiative help people in qualifying for living wage jobs?
Well, I think there are three things that you have to look at.
Maybe just start out with, if you could kind of describe what the Community Jobs Initiative is, and you know that it's a part of a program of the Department of Human Services, but that right now it doesn't, you know, what it doesn't do. It doesn't include GA workers. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't match the job experience to entry-level city jobs. So lay out that part of it.
Okay. The job initiative,
The community jobs.
the Community Jobs Initiative, is basically a plan that is set up for CalWorks parents, and it consists of trainings and it's designed to give the parents skills that could possibly lead to permanent employment. It's been in operation for at least a year now, maybe 18 months. It's been getting some glowing reviews from some of the people who are actually designing those programs. One of the problems is that there is no workfare community jobs initiative. And because of that, there's no way for a GA worker to accumulate the job references that would lead him to be able to qualify for a civil service job.
Start out this next part with, I mean, you were there at the 11th hour negotiations.
Yeah.
So start out the next part as, you know, as a, you know, promise during the 11th hour negotiations with the mayor's office in return for withdrawing the living wage ballot initiative. Power as a part of the Living Wage Coalition was promised the 250 community service jobs for GA recipients that would pay $8 an hour, 32 hours a week. And the experience in those jobs would be that the Department of Human Services would work with civil service to match the job descriptions to entry-level city jobs.
Well, as you remember, Carl,
You don't need it.
well, you can cut that out too.
So
But
just-
as you remember, Power was a part of the Living Wage Coalition. And from what I understand, a very popular part, because there were people in the city that said that if the living wage didn't apply to the very poorest in our neighborhoods and our communities, then it was not a very functional ordinance. So Power worked very hard with the Living Wage Coalition and getting signatures, going out and actually getting enough signatures to put this on the ballot. Now, we were also a part of
maybe describe what putting what on
Putting Power was very instrumental in doing much of the work that would have put a living wage jobs on the ballot, so that the people of San Francisco could have actually made a choice how to apply the living wage jobs.
How would GA workers be included in the living wage law?
Well, GA workers would have, at the very least, received a minimum of $13 an hour for their work, and then would been able to use their job experiences to qualify for civil service jobs.
Maybe if you could, repeat it and clarify the point that the living wage law would have calculated the number of hours to qualify for the grant based on the living wage amount, which for the ballot initiative we were talking 10, right?
Go ahead.
Well, the living wage would apply to GA workers in the fact that the number of hours that the GA workers work would be directly related to the level of the living wage, so that they could qualify for civil service job. Yeah, I think that's.
Except for the part of they're qualifying for civil service jobs. It's
Well,
it wouldn't go that far, but let's go into now the what was promised as part of the.
okay, right,
so,
I can go
yeah,
there.
yeah. Maybe start from the as part of the 11th hour negotiations to withdraw the application.
Okay,
And make it clear, living wage application.
yeah. As an effort to have us withdraw the ballots that were necessary to have the living wage be voted on by the voters of San Francisco. The 11th hour negotiations, we agreed that the city and county of San Francisco would make 250 community job initiative jobs for workfare workers, and that they would work 32 hours a week at.
If you want to start again at
$8 an hour for that. That they would actually work 32 hours a week at $8 an hour, and there would actually be a system set up that those hours that they work would count towards the minimum qualifications for an entry-level job for the city, basically.
Why is that last part important?
Because up until now, that system hasn't existed. There are many workfare workers out there that have the skills the knowledge to be accepted as, at the very least, as trainees in some of the jobs that they're already doing. But the system won't accept, doesn't acknowledge those people as workers, first of all, and second, they don't keep records on how long they've been on the job or what skill level they reached. So it's a vicious circle. These people continually work for and do good work for the city, and are constantly recycling. They, as long as there's a workforce out there that's being treated like a second-class citizen, they'll only do that for so long and get absolutely fed up, and there's another person that falls right into the hole that they just decided was inhuman. So in order to first reward them for the work that they do, for the work that they do, for the value of their labor, there has to be some system set up so that their job experience actually leads to a better job. And the negotiators were pleased as punch that we've taken the initiative off the ballot, and so as a part of that, there was also supposed to be 600 jobs for CalWorks parents to continue on in their community jobs initiative. And in place, they were supposed to be still be able to get their child care and transportation and Medicaid for that.
Did you have health benefits as a GA worker?
There are no health benefits as a GA worker. The only way that you could get any treatment, any health care, is that you go to San Francisco General Emergency and become, a part of that, wait all day and for treatment. There was no outlet for a person working with GA.
What do you want the supervisors to do?
I want the supervisors to change a system that has been oppressing poor people for well over 15 years. I want them to actually be able to come to the conclusion that GA workers and CalWorks parents are doing vital work for the city. I want them to be able to give them credit as being workers. I want them to be able to just begin to reward diligent workers with the type of wages that will help them just to start coming out of this vicious cycle.
Great. Anything else you can think of that you want to add?
No, I think I covered everything. I hope you cut it up.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna be, well, we have, you know, just half an hour and we're still gonna be getting other footage, so we'll be cutting bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And moving it around.
Yeah, I think I hit everything.
And